Hey guys, how's it going? This is Tweak387, and this is my attempt at a Pokemon Black 2 Hardcore Nuzlocke using only Ground-type Pokemon. In short, the rules for my and most other definitions of a Hardcore Nuzlocke are as follows. If a Pokemon faints, it can't be used anymore and must be boxed. Set mode must always be turned on, no in-battle items, but held items are okay. I can only catch the first Ground-type encounter per route, and no leveling past the following gym leader's ace Pokemon. I am also playing with the extended species clause, meaning duplicate encounters are prohibited, including those of the same evolutionary family. On screen are all viable encounters in this run, excluding post-game and version-exclusive encounters. Apart from being one of my favorite typings, ground types are pretty great, having both defensive and offensive capabilities, but while that's great and all, this challenge still won't be particularly easy. The ground tapping is only effective against 2 of Unova's gym leaders, actually 1, but I'll get to that later. So the question still remains, can I beat a Pokemon Black Hardcore Nuzlocke using only Ground-type Pokemon? The answer to that is, well, yes, and also no. The thing is, the first Ground-type encounter available to me can only be caught after beating the second gym, so until then, I'll have to stick to a starter Pokemon that will be boxed once I get my first encounter. I name myself Twig, and my rival Darkrai after a certain Darkrai TVX, and so the run begins. I meet up with Bianca, who lets me pick a Pokemon. I pick Snivy so that Roxy will be more of a challenge to me. I'm then challenged by Darkrai, and so the tackle-off begins. As expected, I completely sweep the floor with him, establishing Twig dominance. After that, I grind up my team to the level cap and go on to challenge the first gym leader Charon, who after 2 years only got worse. He leads with a Patrat and starts setting up with Workup. Patrat goes for tackle, after which Charon heals and goes for another tackle, which does a scary amount of damage. I luckily have an Oran Berry equipped though, so I'm able to regain a little health. I take out the Patrat and Charon sends out his Lillipup. The Lillipup also sets up with Workup as I go for a Vine Whip. Thankfully I'm able to survive the Lillipup's tackle, and I take him out as well, earning me my first badge. I then head out, where I meet Bianca, who hands us the TM for return, which is a surprise tool that'll help us later. Next, I head over to Verbank City. I'll have to face Roxy, who normally wouldn't be a challenge in a ground-type only run, but I don't have access to any ground types yet. I only have boxed the Servine. This means I'll have to beat Roxy's poison types with a single grass type. Also, Roxy's Whirlipede has the ability Poison Points, and also has access to Venoshock, a move that doubles in power when the target is poisoned. This means she can Oko boxed if I'm not careful. Sorta regretting choosing Snivy now. Anyway, this is where Return comes in handy, since with high friendship, it can deal pretty good damage. One way of increasing a Pokemon's friendship is simply by walking. So I run around Verbank City until my grass snake absolutely adores me. I then go to challenge Roxy. Roxy leads with a Coughing, who has Smog, which can poison. If Box does get poisoned, this run is over, so I pray to the RNG gods. Thankfully, Box doesn't get poisoned, and also avoids a Smog. Coughing then goes down to another return. Roxy sends out her Whirlipede, who I've been dreading up until now. Whirlipede stalls with Protect, so on the next turn, I go for Return. Thankfully, Poison Point doesn't get activated, and Box survives a Venoshock. On the next turn, I go for another Return, and the RNG gods have blessed this run, because Box gets a critical hit taking out the Whirlipede. So many things could have gone wrong. Had I not been as lucky as I was, this run had been over. After that, I'm forced into child acting, as I'm involuntarily led to Pokemon Hollywood. Now the industry truly has gone too far. After eventually realizing he can't act, Roxy's dad, who also happens to be a captain, returns to his duties and transports me over to Castelia City. I head over to Route 4, where I finally can get my hands on the first encounter of the run, a Sandile. In this video, I'll name my Pokemon after Sengoku warlords, so I catch a Sandile and name him Nobunaga, the one who started it all. Nobunaga has a relaxed nature, which means defense for speed. Sheesh. At least he has the ability Moxie, which raises attack each time he takes out a Pokemon. As I go to Boxed, I realize he has Pokerus. For those that don't know, Pokerus is a virus that doubles the effort values a Pokemon receives, making my life a lot easier. It approximately has a 1 in 22,000 chance of happening, making it far more rare than finding a shiny Pokemon. I can't believe the luck I'm having this run. I go down to the Castelia sewers in hopes of finding the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but all I find is a rock snake. Aw man. I catch him, and I name him Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi has a relaxed nature, which is actually pretty good. Ahead of me now is the bird fight. Berg is usually a complete pushover, as any fire type easily handles him. In my case, however, he's a nightmare. He has access to grass moves that are 4 times effective against Hideyoshi, and a Razor Leaf from Liavani can also Oko Nobunaga. Needless to say, I'm expecting to wipe. The only way I'm gonna win this is by EV training Hideyoshi to maximize his attack stat, so I head back to Route 19 to mass murder some Patrats. After ages of EV training, I also grab the EV Elite in Castelia City, which will boost Hideyoshi's sky-high defense stat even higher. After countless hours of preparation, I take on Berg, ready to lose the run. I send out Hideyoshi as he sends out Swadloon. I considered setting up with Stealth Rock, but came to the conclusion that I can't risk getting hit by even one Razor Leaf. Swadloon luckily always goes for String Shot first in my experience, and so Hideyoshi is able to take out Swadloon without taking any damage. Liavani comes out, and despite Hideyoshi's insane defense stat, Razor Leaf deals huge damage. I'm lucky that despite Razor Leaf's high crit ratio, it doesn't crit. I have to go for Rock Tomb to lower Liavani's speed and hope that the 80% accurate move hits, which it luckily does. Hideyoshi is now able to outspeed, and so I go for Smackdown, which, after the Citrus Berry activates, puts it in KO range for another Smackdown, but also leaves him healthy enough to not make Berg heal him. To add to my lucky streak, Liavani misses a Razor Leaf that would otherwise have been lethal. Feeling like the luckiest man alive, I press Smackdown, which kills. Lastly, the Dwebble comes out, but I'm not too worried at this point. Hideyoshi finishes off the Dwebble with Smackdown, which wins me the seemingly impossible battle. Whew, at least things will get easier from now on. Right? I then head back to Route 4, where I meet Bill Nye the Science Guy, who challenges me to a battle. I don't prepare at all because what could a Steel-type user do against a team of ground types? I then, however, remember that the only ground type move I have access to right now is Sand Tomb. But it's too late. The Magnemite is no problem at all, but the Klink is. Klink goes for Gear Grind, and I once again get lucky, as he only hits twice. I then pray Sand Tomb hits, which it luckily does. I won't underestimate anyone from now on. I head over to the Desert Resort, where I can get either a Trapinch or a Sandshrew. I'd prefer a Trapinch since he's only available far later in the game otherwise, but oh well. I run into a Sandshrew, which I catch and name Ieyasu. He then evolves into a Sandslash soon after. Ieyasu has a naive nature, which means I get speed for special defense. Not too shabby. I head over to Joan Avenue, where some guy says,
"I really need you to help me out, you know what I mean, don't you?"
I try to decline, but the guy clearly isn't asking for consent. After that experience, I arrive at Nimbasa City, where I find a cross transceiver on the ground. I kindly call the owner, but they can't even be bothered to pick it up, so I'll have to hang on to it for now. After that, I battle some woman who then invites me into the Ferris wheel. I'm not gonna lie, she's sending some pretty strong signals.
I am aware of the effect I have on women.
Anyway, after that, Nobunaga evolves into a Krokorok. I then get another call from the owner of the Lost Cross Transceiver, and, I think she's trying to flirt with me, but I can't know for sure. After leveling up my team to the level cap, I challenge Elisa, but this battle really isn't an issue for my team of ground types. Shocker, huh? I set up with Stealth Rock just in case, but the rest of the battle is truly one-sided, as Elisa's Pokemon can't do anything against Hideyoshi's monstrous defense. I then head over to Driftwell City, and go all the way to Chargestone Cave, where I find a Drillbur in a Dust Cloud. I catch him and name him Shingen. Shingen has a careful nature, which is not ideal, but definitely not bad. I would also have preferred Sandrush over Sandforce, but it's all good. I then go back to Driftwell, where I meet an FBI agent who gives me an expert belt that I pay for using personal info. I then decide to fully maximize Shingen's attack and speed EVs, so I return to Route 19 for round 2. Shingen already has a base attack stat of 135, so making him even stronger and faster will turn him into an absolute weapon of mass destruction. After some more grinding, Shingen evolves. Nothing will stand in the way of the Takeda clan now. Next up is my ground type rival Clay, but first I get lost in the gym puzzle of a kid's game. Yeah. After finally finding Clay, I challenge him and lead with Ieyasu to avoid Krokorok's Intimidate. I switch back to Shingen, hoping that the Krokorok goes for Crunch, but he doesn't. This sort of ruins my plan to sweep with Shingen, because Bulldoze also lowers the speed stats, so I'd risk losing Shingen to Clay's Excadrill. So I take out the Krokorok, and as Sandslash comes out, I switch to Nobunaga. Sandslash then, however, goes for Rollout, which is perfect, because Shingen quad resists Rock-type moves, and so I'm able to switch Shingen back out. This allows me to safely set up a few Hone Claws, and sweep through the rest of Clay's team. After claiming the title as Unova's greatest ground-type user, Clay lures me into his next money-making scheme, which is the Pokemon World Tournament. It's not too hard, as all opponents have much lower level Pokemon, so I win with relative ease. I then head back to Chargestone Cave, where I get my hands on a Metal Coat. Thanks to the Universal Randomizer, allowing for impossible evolutions, this causes Hideyoshi to evolve into Steelix. Additionally, before going to Mistralton City, I head to the Relic Castle where I find a Baltoy. I catch him and name him Kenshin. It has a serious nature, which is fine, and I then also realize he has self-destruct, which could have ended real bad. I grind for some XP, and shortly after, Kenshin evolves into a Claydol. I've never used a Claydol before, so I'm excited about this. Next up is an interesting gym for my team of ground types, since flying types are immune to ground type moves. I do have a lot of rock type moves on my team, so I have some coverage, but let's see how this goes. Skylla leads with Swoobat, and I lead with Hideyoshi. He sets up Stealth Rock, which will be very effective against Skylla's flying types. Finally, Hideyoshi sets up a Sandstorm, and then destroys the Swoobat with a single Rock Slide. Skylla then sends out her ace, Swanna. I get a little cocky and decide to stay in, which was a big mistake. Swanna does huge damage with Bubble Beam. I did not expect that, but then again, Steelix has next to no special defense. I send out Kenshin next since he's probably the only one who can properly tank a Bubble Beam. Swanna's Bubble Beam still does big damage, and at this point, I just have to hope Swanna doesn't crit. Thankfully she doesn't, and I manage to hit the Swanna with an Ancient Power. Knowing Skylla's gonna heal, I switch into Shingen, hoping that one Rock Slide will do the job. And to my delight, it does. Huh, I thought I'd wipe there for a second. Skarmory then comes out, and Shingen goes for another Rock Slide, which does about a third health. Skarmory attempts to set up with Agility, but after a couple Rock Slides, the 6th gym badge is mine. Skylla then flies me over to Lentima's town, where I get my next encounter, a Trapinch. I catch one and name him Masamune. Having a ground dragon type is extremely useful for me, since it neutralizes my weaknesses to both grass and water types. I also make sure to evolve Nobunaga into a Crocodile. I feel like my team's really coming together now. After that, I decide to maximize Masamune's attack and speed EVs. So it's time for round 3.
Please, have mercy. Oh, not tonight, Bishop.
To finish it off, I train for XP until Masamune evolves into a Vibrava. And then into a Flygon. I then of course forget about the rival fight in Undella Town. At least I healed before, so it's not that big of a deal. Hideyoshi was first up in my party, so he sets up Stealth Rock and attempts to set up Sandstorm, but Unpheasant uses Taunt, so it fails. It doesn't matter though, as I'm still able to safely send in Shingen. Shingen sets up with a Swords Dance, and it's sweep in time. Shingen one-shots all of Darkrai's poor Pokemon, which once again shows us who the better Poketuber is. That out of the way, I go to challenge Drayden. From what I've seen on other channels, Drayden's always a scary fight for Nuzlocke. He has a Haxorus with Dragon Dance that can be a serious threat if I'm not careful. He also has a Flygon, which prevents me from sweeping with Shingen, since Shingen has nothing that could OHKO the Flygon. I decide my best approach is to lead with Ieyasu to try to set up Swords Dance. I'm just not sure whether he's fast enough to outspeed Haxorus and Flygon. I encourage you viewers to pause the video here and leave a comment about whether you think I can pull this off or not. I'm very interested to see what you guys think because I really had no idea how this was gonna end. So I send out Ieyasu and set up with Swords Dance. Drayden goes for Crunch, which does surprisingly little damage, so I decide to get greedy and go for another Swords Dance just to be sure. Shingen then takes out the Drayden with an Earthquake. Flygon comes out, and so Ieyasu goes for a return, and to my surprise he outspeeds. One return is easily enough to take out the Flygon, and so Drayden sends out Haxorus, but Ieyasu is just too strong. One Earthquake is enough to earn me the win. I had no idea Sandslash was this powerful. After that, Drayden fills me in on some Unova lore, but gets interrupted by a loud boom. Turns out Team Plasma has a flying pirate ship equipped with a massive ice-shooting cannon.
Now exactly how much pot did you smoke?
Next up is the 8th gym, but as it turns out, the level cap is only 3 levels higher, and I do have a little bit of plot to go through before that. I therefore decide to give an XP share to an HM slave in order to halve the amount of XP gained. Not sure if this goes against any Nuzlocke rules, but I need all my teammates for the next gym, as it'll be a tough one. I then make my way to Humilau City. Next up is Marlin, the water type user. I gotta admit, I haven't exactly been looking forward to this fight, since water is, of course, a type we're weak to. The problem lies in Marlin's Caracosta, since it has the ability Sturdy, which means I can't one-shot him. Additionally, Caracosta has access to Shell Smash, a very dangerous setup move which could potentially be dangerous to my team. Luckily though, I came up with the perfect plan to counter this threat. Masamune learned Dragon Tail upon evolving. For those that don't know, Dragon Tail not only does damage, but also forces the opponent's Pokemon to switch out. Since Marlin's Carracosta always sits up with Shell Smash first, Masamune will be able to get off a Dragon Tail on a Carracosta with lower defense, removing Carracosta's stat boost because of the switch out. Additionally, I don't have to worry about Sturdy. So I send out Masamune to execute the plan, which goes exactly as calculated. Carracosta goes for Shell Smash as Masamune is able to hit a Dragon Tail, forcing Carracosta to switch out. Wailord comes out, and I send out Nobunaga in hopes of starting a Moxie sweep. Unfortunately, I'm dumb enough to press Dig instead of Crunch, and so the Wailord nearly takes out Nobunaga as Scald burns. This puts me in a somewhat bad spot as I'm forced to switch out. I send Masamune back out as Wailord bounces up in the air. This, however, allows Masamune to go for a Dig, which takes out the Wailord. Carracosta comes out, but there's not much he can do as Masamune goes for another Dig, taking him out. Finally, Marlin's ace, Jellicent, comes out. Masamune uses Crunch, but it's not enough, and Jellicent's ability Cursed Body activates, disabling Crunch. I press Rock Slide, which almost takes out Jellicent. Knowing Marlin will heal, and with Crunch still disabled, I switch into Shingen. Shingen uses Earthquake, which I expect to Oko the Jellicent, but it lives barely. Shit! Jellicent goes for Scald, but luckily doesn't crit or burn, and so Shingen lives. One more Earthquake takes out the Jellicent and wins me the battle. I then go to the Giant Chasm to catch our next encounter, a Piloswine. I name him Mitsuhide. Mitsuhide has a sassy nature, which isn't ideal, but it'll have to do. As me and Darkrai run after Team Plasma, Marlin shows up and helps us get inside the boat, but before that, he gives us some proper life advice.
Listen, Kay, believe in something. Searching Pokemon is fine. Keeping your number from being nice over is fine too. It's all good, but think about why you're doing that. The strength in your beliefs is what gives you and your Pokemon power.
Thank you, Marlin. I will forever remember that. I then head over to the Giant Chasm again to face Team Plasma. I battle my way through the frigate until I find Zinzlin, who once again wants a piece of this. Unfortunately for him, Shingen breezes through his team without breaking a sweat. I then proceed to the next room where I run into the biggest plot twist in Pokemon history. Turns out the boss of Team Plasma is a Colgate toothpaste. Also, I want to point out that I'm once again going into this fight unprepared, so expect some stupid plays. I lead with Nobunaga since the idea is to sweep with Moxie, but many of Culver's Pokemon have Sturdy, so the plan fails. Nobunaga manages to take out Magneton, Magnezone, and Beheeyem, but once Klinklang comes in, I decide it's best to switch, since it has an air balloon equipped, so I can't one-shot him. I send in Kenshin as Klinklang sets up with Shift Gear. Oof, this could go badly. I misclick and press Extrasensory as Klinklang sets up with yet another Shift Gear. What have I done? Kenshin finally hits with an Earth Power, which is almost enough, but not quite. On the next turn, Klinklang uses Giga Impact. Rest easy, Kenshin. Wait, he lives! I cannot believe it. I thought for sure that would have been enough to kill, but Kenshin lives and finishes the Klinklang off with an Earth Power. Finally, the Metang comes out, so I send out Shingen. Metang doesn't really have anything to hit Shingen with, so the fight is already won. I then move on to the last room where I discover that Ghetsis was behind all this the whole time once again. He gives me a speech and then dips. I then enter the Giant Chasm where I'm greeted by Ghetsis and Kyurem. Well, not exactly greeted. Ghetsis commands Kyurem to turn me into a popsicle, but luckily N shows up and intervenes. To make a long story short, Ghetsis fuses Kyurem with Reshiram, and now I have to fight Black Kyurem. The challenge here is that I'm gonna have to battle Kyurem and Ghetsis consecutively, but this isn't really an issue as you'll see in a second. The fight against Kyurem is pretty underwhelming, as Shingen takes it out with 2 Rock Slides. I then have to face Ghetsis. Ghetsis leads with his Cofagrigus, who isn't a very offensive Pokemon, so Shingen can get off a Sword Stance as Cofagrigus goes for Protect. Shingen then does what he does best, and starts sweeping. First the Cofagrigus, then the Seismitoad, then Drapion, Electros, Toxicroak, and finally Hydreigon. That was probably the easiest Ghetsis fight I've ever had. After taking a fat L, Ghetsis is confronted about his daddy issues. Ghetsis finally disappears, and that's Team Plasma dealt with. On my way through Victory Road, I battle a trainer with a Lampent. I send out Hideyoshi, and despite the type disadvantage, I get cocky and stay in. The game finally punishes me for playing stupid, as the Lampent lands a crit Flame Burst, which takes out Hideyoshi. That brainless play resulted in the first death of the run, but I guess I had it coming. Rest in peace, Hideyoshi. You achieved great things. With Hideyoshi gone, I contemplate bringing Mitsuhide the Piloswine onto the team, but remember that I still have another encounter. Route 23 has a hidden grotto where I can catch a Gligar, but there's a catch. Gligar has a 1% chance of appearing, so this is gonna take a while. After literal hours of checking hidden grottos, I find one. I use my Master Ball to catch him and decide to name him Yukimura, our last hero. Yukimura has a bashful nature, which I'm fine with, and of course he has the hidden ability Immunity, which will later turn into Poison Heal once Yukimura evolves. I grind a little, and finally Yukimura evolves into a Gliscor. I finally make it through Victory Road, but just as I'm about to exit, Darkrai challenges me. I once again forgot about this. Anyway, I send out Nobunaga as he leads with Unpheasant. Unpheasant uses a U-turn and switches into Bouffalante. I know Bouffalante has Mega Horn, so I need to switch out. I send out Shingen, who tanks a Mega Horn. What I didn't know though is that Bouffalante also has Earthquake. Shingen gets real close to death, but hangs on with 12 HP. I send out Yukimura next, and I need to set up a sweep here. I did the calculations, and Yukimura should be able to take another head charge. And he does. From here, Yukimura starts his first sweep, taking out the rest of Darkrai's team. When will you learn, Darkrai? You're just not on my level. The only thing ahead of me now is the Pokémon League. I'm feeling pretty confident because I've been planning for this moment the entire run. I decide my first victim should be Marshall. Before going into the league, I make sure to poison Yukimura due to his Poison Heal ability. I've equipped Yukimura with a Citrus Berry so that I can set up with a Swords Dance or two, take some damage forcing the berry to be consumed, and then sweep with Acrobatics, which takes double damage if the user has no item. My plan doesn't work, however, because Yukimura is simply too beefy to take enough damage for the berry to be consumed. To compensate, Yukimura just sets up twice with Swords Dance. From there it's smooth sailing, so I win my first fight with ease. My next victim is Caitlyn. This is Nobunaga's time to shine. Caitlyn sends out Musharna, but switches into Reuniclus. It's all the same though, as Nobunaga mercilessly chews the green fetus into pieces. Moxie now activates, which allows me to Oko the rest of Caitlyn's team. Second W in the bag. Grimsley's next, and so it's Shingen's turn to prove his might. Grimsley leads with his pathetic Liepard, which allows Shingen to get off a Swords Dance without any trouble. And once again, it's sweeping time. Crocodile actually gets off an Intimidate, which lowers Shingen's attack, but it makes little difference. It's just a slight inconvenience. And with that, I only have one more of the Elite Four to go. Lastly, I challenge Chantal. I initially planned to sweep with Nobunaga, but then realized Chantal's first Pokemon, Pythagoras, has Will-O-Wisp. If Nobunaga gets burned, he'll more or less be useless, so instead my plan was to lead with Yukimura and set up a Swords Dance. This works because Yukimura is already poisoned, so Will-O-Wisp would fail. So I send out Yukimura and set up with Swords Dance. On the following turn, the Pythagoras actually gets uncomfortably close to taking out Yukimura due to a previous special defense drop. But Yukimura lived, and the Citrus Berry activates. Yukimura takes out Pythagoras, but there was one thing I forgot about. Pythagoras' ability, Mummy, which removes Yukimura's Poison Heal. So when Chandler comes out, I just switch out Yukimura for Nobunaga and sweep with him instead. The rest of Chantal's team poses no threat whatsoever, so that's the Elite Four dealt with. Now onto the champ. The champion fight is actually somewhat of a problem. More specifically, Iris' Hydreigon is. Hydreigon has Surf, which is a major problem for my ground types. Masamune is also not an option, as Hydreigon has Dragon Pulse, which can potentially Oko Masamune. My best bet is to lead with Shingen, who can take a Surf, given that it doesn't crit. So I send out Shingen and set up with a Swords Dance. Hydreigon goes for Surf, which luckily doesn't crit, and now it's sweeping time. Shingen takes out Iris' Hydreigon, Druddigan, and Aggron. Once Hexorus comes out, however, the sweep is over. Hexorus hangs onto his Focus Sash, and so Shingen dies an honorable death. Feeling confident, I send out Ieyasu, since I think it would be suitable for him to rep this up. Ieyasu manages to set up with 2 Swords Dances without issue, subsequently taking out Hexorus. Lapras comes out, but she's no match. Finally, Archeops comes out. Ieyasu goes for a not very effective return, which is enough to put the Archeops into the fetus range. After that, Ieyasu lives and is able to finish off the Archeops, winning me the run. And here I thought the previous challenge was fun. As I said before, the ground type is one of my favorite typings, and the Black and White series are probably my favorite core series games. So it goes without saying that I really love this challenge. Because of the selection of great ground types in this game, I can't claim that this challenge was very hard, but there were still moments where I thought I'd wipe. I would happily do another ground type only run in another game, so if that's something you want to see, then make sure to like the video. I put so much effort into this video, so every single like, comment, and subscriber I get absolutely makes my day. So if it's not too much trouble, consider doing those things. Also, if anyone has any suggestions for future videos or anything else they want to share, then just leave it in the comment section. It won't go unnoticed. If you want to see me do these challenges live, remember to check me out on Twitch at Twig387. Also, check out our Discord in the link in the description if you want to chat about Nuzlocke or other things with me and other community members. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Goodbye.